Hi guys, this is Tony here from Metal Roos. You're about to sit down and enjoy an interview I just did um, over there. And so do like and subscribe so you can get all this straight into your streaming and into your consciousness as soon as it arrives. So enjoy the interview, and I will. Over to you, Tony. Welcome to Metal Roos. Thanks for coming and chatting to us about this amazing tour that you've got coming up. That's going to be quite an interesting. Is it 5 days? 5 dates? Yeah,
Yeah, five
5 days.
shows.
Yeah, in June. So from the I think it's the 10th of June to the 15th of June.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. And you're doing back to back the two albums, Citadel and Exul, right?
Yes, it's definitely going to be a very big show. Um, it was one of those things where, I came up with the idea for this show early last year in 2024. Within the idea was to do it across Europe for our headline tour there in October. And, I remember talking to the guys in the band about it. Uh, and the first thing, of course, came up was like, how long is that if we do both albums? It's like, can we do that? Um, but we kind of thought, well, hey, if we prepare well and what we thought maybe we could pull it off, and we did it for a month across Europe last October, and it actually went really well. It was a bit of a different type of show compared to our normal show in some ways,
Hmm.
just because of the flow of playing an album in full and then playing a whole nother album in full. Um, but the response in Europe was so good. We had people saying, "Hey, bring this to Australia," and so we are.
Brilliant. I mean, obviously, you've had a few albums. How did you choose Citadel to go with Exile? I mean, Exile is your latest one, but how did you choose Citadel and not Portal of Eye? I mean, what brought you to Citadel for that one?
Yeah, so last year was the 10th anniversary of Citadel, and we
No.
remastered the record, which came out I think in October last year, around the time of that tour. So I guess it was that thing of like getting up to that 10th anniversary. It was like, hey, we want to do a remaster. We want to kind of polish up the record a little bit, which we're really happy with how that came out. We really thought that updated version of the album just sounds that slightly better than the original, which we're really happy with. And really just the 10th anniversary was a good excuse to revisit some of those songs because I think obviously Earn had been the latest record before Exul, and so we played lots of stuff of Earn for a few years, and there were certain songs or Citadel that we hadn't played very much since the Citadel album cycle, and that's going back to 2014 to 16,
Hmm.
which was then going back a lot of years, and we love it, and so we thought really it's just a good excuse for us to play a bunch of older songs that we haven't played in a while, and it is an album that we know a lot of fans love, and so we thought, that would be a really special thing to do. And, things like, Painters of the Tempest, which is, a three-part,
Yeah.
23-minute song. And we hadn't played that in full as like a three-part of the full 23 minutes since Citadel was the new record.
Wow.
And that was something that was really so gratifying in Europe last October to go back and play that because for me personally that's one of my favorite things that we ever wrote. It's not that easy to write a 23-minute
No,
song, and
no.
we were and still are very proud of it, and so to be able to go back and replay that, and but also the other tracks, the Pyrrhic we hadn't played much in a while, and Devour Me Colossus we had been playing quite often from that record, but part two, which is like the outro of the record, we had actually never ever played that live before.
Right.
And then we did that for the first time last October. So it's lots of little things like that, which I think make it really fun and interesting for us, but also fun and interesting for the audience because we like to think we have a lot of good different songs, and we want to make each tour a special experience and something that people feel like, oh, they can't miss this one.
Well, I mean, and I think that's very apt for saying because I've seen you on all of your tours in Australia. From a Soundwave was where I first saw you, got hooked, and then saw you loads of times here in Canberra and in Sydney and all over the place. And
Yeah.
every time it's always been a special experience, always. And so I think that bringing the two albums together is going to be. And are you doing the first album, Exul? Is that your first into the, or are you going with Citadel first and Exul afterwards in a tour?
Yeah, in Europe we were doing Citadel first and then going into Exul, which we kind of liked because it had us beginning with that Painters of the Tempest in three parts, and that's then was the start of the show. So we haven't really talked about it in detail, but I guess we'll probably do the same.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's just something that I think that will be just really fun special experience for us and hopefully the audience as well.
Yeah, yeah, I'm looking forward to it because, as I said, I love your stuff, and going to the Citadel will be the one that because it's one of my favorite albums.
Mm.
It's often replayed. It's quite a heavy playlist in my house. It's Citadel, so that will be a great one. And you're touring with Christ. No, not Christ. Psychoptic. Is that
Yes.
correct? They're
Yes,
a
yeah,
brutal band.
yeah,
They're fantastic.
absolutely. Sarcoptic are one of those bands that, when we first came up, we started in 2003. We played our first show in 2006. I remember Sarcoptic came out with their Observe It album, I think about 2008. At that point, when you go into like the heavy metal scene in Australia, if you exclude kind of anything that has core in the genre, they were as big as it got when we were starting out. And
Yes,
they such a consistent band, for 15, 20 years now. They've been putting out great records and they've been a significant band in the Australian metal scene. And they were one of those bands that we really looked up to, and we still look up to how incredibly tight they are. Joe and Dave Haley on guitar
oh,
and drums are incredibly tight as musicians, and all of us in the band are fans of them, and we've wanted to tour with them for a long time. We opened up for them for a couple times way back. I think it was 2008, but that's the only time we've actually played with them, and that's 17 years ago. And so
wow.
the last couple of Australian tours, we've had, two or three Australian tours in a row where we've had, international bands as the focus of the supports. So, we're obviously as an Australian act, but we've often been bringing international acts around. And, we really wanted to pick a great Australian metal band this time around. And, we really think we've got one of the best in Psychoptic on this tour.
Oh, great choice. I mean, I've seen them live a lot. I can't count how many times I've seen them, and they never let you down either, right? So
No.
you're so right about the early 80s, man. It was like the desert. There was like nothing around. Very hard to find really good metal in Australia then. It truly was. Now, like it's such a wonderful scene that
Yeah.
you have helped build. Bands like yourself and Psychoptic, they helped build this great scene here in Australia, and I have to thank you for that because, like, it was like getting a drink on a hot day when I saw you at Soundwave.
Well, it's a really fascinating thing because, when we started, we're looking up to bands like Sarcoptic, and they're filling venues like, say, in Melbourne, there's a venue called Max Watts, which used to be
Mm,
the Hi-Fi Bar, and there might be 600, 700 people there to see them play. And that was as big as it got. And the only thing bigger than that was bands in more hardcore scene, metalcore scene like Parkway Drive and, Amity Affliction, things like that, right? But the really incredible thing over the last, 15 years is that the ceiling for bands in the metal scene has just been continually going up.
yeah,
And then, it's obviously bands like ourselves have, we've continued to grow on each record, but, Sarcoptic have been doing well. And another band like Bellacore or Caligula's Horse or Pliny, or on the other side, you've got bands like, Carnival or, 12 Foot Ninja, who aren't around anymore, but we're doing fantastic things.
oh God, I
And then
remember
the
them.
metalcore scene, it's just insane because there's a bunch of bands that can do like a couple thousand people a night, make
Mm,
them suffer, doing amazing things. And obviously, I mentioned Amity and
mm,
Parkway before, Alpha Wolf. Like, there's so many Australian heavy bands of pick your genre
yeah,
doing really great things, and I guess especially you know, um, in that metalcore scene, but also in this kind of prog extreme scene. There's some fantastic bands doing great things, and we're just kind of happy to be part of that. Just one band in amongst that big mix of a whole bunch of really really cool bands here in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, I have said, I've gone on record and I'll say it again, that Australia makes the best prog metal in the world. I really genuinely believe that. And
Yes.
you are at that sort of vanguard, your band, of that sound,
Mm.
because it's, I don't know how you do it, Tim. Like the creativity that comes out across these albums, and then transferring them live is so talented. And you've got the new singer now, haven't you? You're touring with.
Mm.
Is
Yep.
that going down okay?
Yeah, it's been great. It was one of those things where, like, to be honest, we had never considered that the band would exist without Zen a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I remember during the pandemic, there was a lot of stress within the band and within the world in general. And Zen and I always used to talk to each other like, whatever happens at the very end, it'll be us.
Yeah.
We were like the two there at the beginning, and we'll be there at the end, regardless of whatever happens, with the band. But I guess we got kind of forced into a situation in 2023 where Zen had to pull out of our first tour in 4 years, in Europe in April, May, 2023 on about 10 days notice. And because of that, we'd already spent all the money and we'd already done everything. It would have cost us tens of thousands of dollars if we'd canceled. So we started thinking, well, who are the best vocalists we know that aren't already busy,
Mm.
touring with bands right now. And James Jordan, who we knew from Black Crown Initiate, was one of the top names that came up. We toured together in the US in 2016 when Black Crown Initiate had supported Neo. And, we were obviously very unsure how that would go, not because of James, but just because of how the fan reaction would be. But thankfully, people were really responsive and appreciative of the fact that the show was still a fantastic show, even if it was slightly different to what they had expected or seen us in the past. And everyone much preferred that we did the tour than we canceled it. Aside from the fact that we would have lost money ourselves, it just wouldn't have happened. And then people miss out on hearing those songs and stuff like that. And then from there, because that went so well, because so many of the responses were, wow, that was way better than I thought it could be. It was a bit different, but I still loved it. And because we were hearing that every night, then we had a US tour already booked. And so we said to Zen, hey, you can come back, great. But if not, we'll get James again. And, that's what we did. And, in between there, Zen was able to hop on for the Australian show, September 2023. But in the last 6 years, those were actually the only shows that we had done with Zen. Those four
Wow.
Australian shows in September 2023, and then we did obviously the US, and then we went back to do festivals in Europe in the middle of last year. We were doing a European headline tour, South America, Mexico. We did all that stuff with James, and so really, Australia is the only place that we haven't toured with James so far. So I guess we're always like a little bit nervous because when people see a new version of the show for the first time, and I think
Mm.
because Australia has the longest history with the band, we're like, are people going to be more attached to the original version of the band? And but I think that in the end, like the reality is that we know we've already done like 100 or more shows with James, and we know that he's incredible, and so it was one of those things where it was kind of a no-brainer because, it was Zen's decision. We gave him, like a lot of time. Like he spent, over a year and a half, taking some time off, thinking about what he wanted to do. And in the end, it was his choice. He felt like he didn't really want to continue. And we were disappointed with that, but we were also confident, like, okay, this sucks. And yet at the same time, we know we're good because we know we have this incredible new vocalist. And yeah, things change a little bit, but I guess we kind of just backed ourselves like, hey, this is kind of exciting. There'll be some new sounds as an artist after 20 years, having like a new, like a new artistic toy to play with, like in a new band member. James and Zen are both great vocalists, but James can do sounds a little bit different. So it's like, oh, when we start to write, which we're kind of doing at the moment, it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. And I guess we just back ourselves to be able to keep writing great music, and we know the live show is a special one. So excited to share that with the Aussie fans.
Oh, look, I mean, it's wonderful to hear that it's going well because evolution, things evolve. People are
Mm,
human, but humans are humans, and things do things. Creative things change. And I think that the new album is going to be fresh. It's going to be always your kind of sound. I don't think it could be anything but Neo, right?
yeah,
Whatever you do, it's the DNA is going to be there. I've watched videos of him playing with you. So I know what it's gonna. I'm so keen to see them live, to see how he interacts. Because I mean, I always have Zen in my. We always have Zen in our hearts, us
yeah,
fans. Always, that cramped club with the sweat and the steam and the lights and the noise. You always have that memory, right? Um,
yeah.
but you grow and you change, and I reckon that the fans that come out to those dates are going to just be blown away as always, Tim, because you don't do anything by halves.
No,
You
no,
don't do it by halves, right?
yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I think that in the end, what we've kind of worked out over time is that when you are in a band for such a long period of time, and it's been now, over 21 years, the reality is that sometimes people change, priorities change, and that's okay. And you don't want to force people to do something that they're not passionate about. And in reality, the vibe in the band is always best when people are really excited and passionate to be there. And so, to be honest, anytime we've had a membership change, generally there's been a kind of a burst of enthusiasm into the band because you've got this new person there who's really excited to be there and grateful for the opportunity. And often that brings a really positive, wonderful energy into the band. And then, of course, the other choice is just to not do it at all. And
Oh
for me,
no,
this
don't do that. Don't do
yeah,
that.
and that's no choice at all.
Uh,
So
horrible thought. No, no, don't do that. My son-in-law loves you. I took him when he was 18 to his very first gig with me, and it was a Neo gig, and it was in the basement in Canberra. And it went off. It was fantastic, and he's been hooked ever since. So I'm bringing them along to Sydney. So that'll be really good.
great
But
to
yeah,
hear.
but please do keep going because the world loves you. Obviously, you have that sound that's uniquely Australian, uniquely you, also very accessible,
Yeah.
without being, so difficult to get into. Because I think your stuff is wonderful. So looking forward to the tour. Thank you very much. Looking forward to a new record. That'll be good. I thought Exul
Yeah.
was amazing, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we were really proud of it,
Yeah,
with every record, we're always just trying to learn and grow, as a songwriter, it's really important to me personally to make sure that I'm experimenting with new ideas, and every album there is that spirit of experimentation whilst it's still being us, because of course the stuff I write is going to sound like me, and the stuff Benji writes is going to sound like him, and those sort of things. And yet at the same time, I want to push my boundaries of what we do, and push the other guys and the boundaries of what they contribute. And I think that's really that essence of what makes me excited, because there's just so many more ideas that we have, and so many different things and directions we could go that we don't feel like we're anywhere near kind of running out of ideas, which is
wonderful.
exciting, because
Yeah,
it means that I very much see us hopefully doing many more records for many years to come. That's definitely the plan. And I'm just as curious to see the direction the new record will go. as everyone else. I obviously have some stuff that's been written, some stuff in the works, but it's always a bit of a curious thing to see what happens when it gets all in a melting pot of everybody, and what direction it all kind of comes together in.
Brilliant. And I'll just before I go, I'd like to say that honestly, I think that's the wonderful thing about your kind of music and why I love the freedom within the progressive metal scene and progressive rock in general. I love prog rock, but in general, just the freedom that you can come and know your audience
Mm.
is going to go, yes, Tim, I'm with you on this journey. You know what I mean? I'm coming with you down this road. This is where we're going. And I think this is the beauty of it. There's no blinkered
Yeah.
ways. It's open what they call it these days in gaming, open world, whatever you want to call it. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. And I think that the really interesting thing is that, so many bands do get stuck in a particular formula over time. And I think for us, I've almost been conscious of trying to make sure that we don't do that too much because I want to be able to just do whatever we
Of
want.
course, that's exactly right. Yeah, you
Um,
got to enjoy it as
you know,
well.
yeah, and I think that obviously, we mix progressive stuff, we mix melodic melodies with more extreme elements of metal. I guess that element of always combining that diversity of the metal world, I guess, is for me what Nailed with Ascaris' sound
Oh
is.
yeah,
But the details, what sort of extreme metal we write, or what sort of melodic or progressive metal or music we write, I feel like we could almost get away with whatever combinations,
oh
as long
yes.
as we're still doing a diversity of things, and it's us. It'll sound like us, and I think it'll have the audience. And of course, we know that as bands change over time, the audience changes, and people have their favorite records and stuff like that. But we've been really thrilled because for us, Exul was a record that we love, and it's been our most successful record. And so we really love all four of the records, and it's been really great to see the band grow every time we put out something new, and hopefully we can just keep that up.
Oh, you will. I mean, you will. I mean, it's growing every time. As I said, I think Exile was the most sort of mature. I mean, your album's mature anyway. There's no, you know what I mean? It felt really solidly you in that
Yeah,
album. It felt like sound like a band who knew where they were going. This is where we are. This is who we are, and
yeah,
this is what we're doing. And I think that they can only get better, my friend. It can only get better.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for your support.
Oh, it was a pleasure. As I said, lovely stuff. So, thanks for coming on chatting with me. We'll see you on the tour. I'm sure
Thank
that you've got
you.
lots of practice to do.
Definitely.
I'd rather
Hey, you
you
know
than
what?
yeah,
You,
God.
you know what? We're actually doing this exact show. We're doing because we're about to head off to the USA in a couple of weeks
Mm.
for Chaos and Carnage with Dying Fetus, Cradle of Filth, Flesh God Apocalypse.
Oh,
And at the end of that tour, we're doing this show, the Citadel Exul show in Mexico. Um, and so the great thing is that we did it in October, but then we won't have done it for a while. We get to the middle of May, we do it a couple of times in Mexico. Then we have like 2 weeks break, and so we'll be all nice and refreshed for the Australian fans.
oh,
With a
brilliant.
couple of performances already under our belt in Mexico,
Wonderful.
and ready and raring to go when we get back to Australia.
And I love that you're an Australian band doing well overseas. It really makes my heart swell. I feel really proud of you all because it's such great music, and you have to be great to what you're doing to make good music, and you
Mm.
do. You are. Keep doing it, and we'll see you in. I'll see you in June.
Thank you very much.